I am finally now ready as can be to open up about this. I honestly don't think I'll ever be ready, but sometimes you just have to push yourself and be a little courageous. I've documented a lot and I wanted to really open up. I was born with a breast deformity that made me detest my breast. I grew up feeling humiliated and disgusted at what I saw in the mirror. There was no self-love there. At the age of 19, I decided I would get breast implants to fix my congenital deformity. I was always a healthy girl, but 5 years later, I recognized what a disservice I had done to my body. I began to experience an autoimmune disease. My thyroid was out of whack. My speech became slurred. I couldn't remember things. I had never experienced this type of brain fog. I was embarrassed at the amount of times I'd forget things in conversation. Experienced my first panic attack in New York City. I remember not understanding what was happening to my body and rushing to my room because my first reaction was to take off all my clothes in public. And it was such a low point for me. I was lost. I was not the happy girl I once was. I started contemplating death. I felt like my life had been taken from me. My health was deteriorating right in front of me. My hair was falling. I was getting rashes all over my chest. My joints had never hurt this bad. I had lost the desire to have sex. I was bedridden and lost the love for life. As I reclaimed my sanity and self-worth, I began doing research on my symptoms. Heart palpitations, cold limbs, gain weight of over 40 pounds, dehydration, static through shoulders, my upper back, my neck, swollen face, my lips, my hands. As I woke up and I connected the dots.
For the first time, the agency is now acknowledging that what women call breast implant illness is real. These are before and after pictures. Women who say you can see their health improved when they took their implants out.
I began connecting with women whose stories were my own. I saw myself in them and I struggled with the idea of removing my breast implants and going back to that person I was born to be. I was terrified of having to accept myself when I literally went under the knife to change that girl. But my gut told me that was it. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I scheduled my surgery for an en-bloc total capsulectomy, which is the proper way to remove breast implants. I went into surgery that day crying of fear and guilt, knowing what I had came in so happily to once get done was now my biggest nightmare. That morning, the surgeon came in and told me we would have to change the procedure due to my deformity. Instead of going under the breast fold, we would be going through the areolas. He said there was a high chance I could lose skin during surgery because of my breast shape and couldn't guarantee my breast tissues would have enough oxygen if we went through the breast fold. I trusted in him, and after 3 hours of removing my capsules, that is what your body creates to protect itself from the foreign object, I opened my eyes and I cried. I felt like Natalie again. I felt immediately sharper than I did. I could focus on Dennis talking to me. I could understand. My legs and my back were no longer in pain. My joints didn't ache and I felt renewed. And this was right after surgery. I went back home and saw my face. My lips and my nose and my eyes weren't swollen like they once were. My neck didn't feel hot like it once did. I am now 2 months post-op and I can tell you how amazing I feel. I feel amazing. I got my life back. And a good 70% of my symptoms are gone, and I understand that, I'm still detoxing and I have a long way to go. I mean, I had these implants for over 5 years. However, I look at my now deformed breast and I love myself.
God, I can't. Wait, hold on. I need a little bit, just a little bit of time.
Relax.
1 month after my surgery, Canada and France decided to ban textured breast implants, my implants. In March 25th and 26th, the FDA held a hearing for women like myself who have been affected physically and mentally by these devices. We are still awaiting what's next, and we urge the FDA to listen to these testimonials. Women deserve better. Failed regulation and flawed studies need to be addressed. It's time to move forward. I have learned to keep my head up high and embrace the person God had me destined to be. I wanted to share my story in hopes to bring awareness to BII and to encourage girls who don't feel enough to start looking at themselves and realizing what a phenomenal being that you are. As Maya Angelou once said, "'Cause I'm a woman, phenomenally phenomenal woman." That's me. So the reason I read that is because honestly, I've tried so much to sit here and be able to open up about this with you guys, and it's hard. It has taken so much energy out of me. I thought that was kind of the best way for me to kind of explain in a nutshell everything. I also wanted to take this time to really open up about my deformity and my plastic surgery, what led me down that road, and then also backtracking that all, because 5 years later, I don't have these implants in my body anymore, which is absolutely amazing. I cannot believe that I carried this in my body for 5 years. That is crazy. They're pretty heavy too. So I want to start talking about my relationship with my breasts. I grew up being quite a late bloomer. Honestly, all my friends were getting their little boobies in and starting to wear bras, and I wasn't. And I was like, oh God, please give me some boobies. Strangely enough, you know, now that I'm older, I understand like, okay, well, you know, breasts, they express femininity to a lot of women. They express sexuality. They express feeling whole with oneself. I never quite understood why I didn't appreciate my own breasts. You know, I would look at myself in the mirror and I was disgusted. I hate that word, but I was not appreciative of my breasts. And, you know, I felt inadequate and I felt not feminine enough, unappealing. And so I just always thought, oh my goodness, like, you know, what's it gonna be like the first time that I have sex with someone and I can't take off my bra because I'm uncomfortable and because I hate what I see. Kind of going into my upbringing a little bit. I was born into a Colombian family, you know, beautiful, amazing family. I grew up seeing a lot of women in my family changing their bodies, and you know, back in the day, I'm not sure if Colombia is still one of the places that people get a lot of surgeries, but it was one of the top places where women were changing their bodies. I definitely feel like, you know, growing up and seeing a lot of my family members change themselves did somewhat attribute to me being okay with the idea of me later down the line doing it as well. So around the age of 16, I became really insecure with my breasts, like very much so. I started doing a lot of research into, you know, how could I potentially change this? What were my options here? I remember going into my computer on YouTube like late at night and looking at other women who had enhanced their breasts. So I would look up breast augmentations, and a lot of the girls that appeared were people like Shan XO and Carissa Pukas, which now actually had them removed, which is very, very interesting. And I was heavily influenced by these videos as well. It looked so great on the outside, and they were saying how much confident they were and just how much better they felt and how great they looked. And I would see all their process and I was getting my hopes up. Finally, at the age of 19, I decided that I was going to get a breast augmentation. My parents were absolutely 100% opposed to this idea. They were like, absolutely not. You are not going to do this. You are beautiful just the way you are. I mean, your parents will always tell you that. And I was like, no, this is what I'm gonna do. After a while of researching and doing all this, I decided I would be going to Colombia to get my implants done. Partially because you weren't allowed to get silicone until the age of 21, I believe, and I was 19. I started looking into the process of breast implants, and you know, I found throughout my research that saline was really great, but silicone felt more natural. And for saline implants, it was possible for them to deflate and to erupt, and then all the water would just spill out and you would be left flat. Against my parents' will and all, I went to Colombia. My mom accompanied me. I went and I saw a bunch of different plastic surgeons. After multiple consultations with different surgeons, they told me that I had a deformity. And so my deformity is called tubular breast deformity, which pretty much consists of a narrow breast base at the chest wall. The nipple and the areola tends to be a little bit bigger. So pretty much it's like the lower half of the breast was never developed. And then I was like, So at the age of 19, I decided to go in in and get implants. There are so many neurotoxins and carcinogens in here. Textured implants have also now been linked to a type of cancer. These are banned right now as of this year in France and in Canada. So other places are taking action. Back in March, the FDA held a hearing for women that felt that they had failed to protect the health of women. And a lot of statements were dropped and a lot of things where, you know, people themselves were like, yes, implants are a chemical soup. I would say that my health started declining detrimentally 3 years after I got my implants in. I remember 6 months out of me getting my implants, my mom was questioning me as to why my hair was all over the floor. I mean, I was losing loads of hair every single day. I also started to experience extreme fatigue, but like extreme fatigue. We're not talking like, you know, I'm just tired, whatever. I mean like you're bedridden. Like I would have days where I would be depressed in my bed. I couldn't get out. I would have my employees outside my door asking like, Natalie, come on, like it's time to work. And I physically could not. I was bedridden. I had no energy at all. I was dealing with so much depression and anxiety, something that I had never dealt with to this extent before. Made the decision to go to Colombia and get myself a dog. That is where Jupiter actually came from, because my depression and my anxiety was honestly out of hand. Maybe the people around me and maybe you guys couldn't tell, but I was battling my inner demons every single day and it was not healthy and I knew I needed help. That is why he is so special to me. He has literally saved my life. Started dealing with a lot of issues with breathing. I would go to multiple doctors. I would ask them, you know, what is wrong with me? So they're like, no, you're probably just anxious. You're probably just anxious. I'm like, why am I anxious? I have no reason to be. I wrote here that, because I didn't want to forget, that in retrospect, I did believe my body was desperate to just like get these out, because I was starting to feel not only a lot of heat right here, but rashes. I was getting rashes on my chest for the very first time ever, and my breasts, never around the areola, but just like on the sides. Sometimes it would go all the way to my back. The weirdest thing, I was getting chest pains. Along with that, I experienced my very first panic attack out of nowhere. And I was in New York City. I started to take off my clothes. It was very strange. So after that, I started to go into a bunch of different doctors just to see what was up, what was going on. I would tell my parents all the time, and Dennis, I was like, I feel like I'm dying. My joints hurt. I can't remember things. My hair is falling. My skin is always in like these rashes. My chest hurts. I can't breathe. My joints hurt. I feel like an old person. I go to sleep and wake up feeling worse, as if like I had just ran a bunch of miles, done like CrossFit, and I was aching all around my entire body. I had these crazy tingles going throughout my whole back, my chest. I had so much back pain. I was constantly going in to get massages, and the lady was like, damn girl, these knots are intense. And I was telling her, you know, I feel all of this static from my whole shoulders, my back, my arms, my legs every once in a while. I wake up with my hands swollen. I know something is wrong with me. I have a friend, her name is Jennifer, who has been absolutely amazing. She has been an angel in my life. She would actually joke with me because I was beginning to experience the effects of what it is to really be silicone poisoned in a way, right? Where I couldn't even hold a conversation with someone. I would forget mid-sentence what I was gonna say. I had it in my head, but I couldn't get it out. It was the first time I was ever experiencing this type of like slurred talk where I wasn't making sense. I would just forget everything. My memory was out of whack. And you know, we even had like this little inside joke where she was like, girl, I could get you fish oil if you want, little vitamins, fish oil vitamins if you like. And it became this thing where I was like, oh my God, I'm literally losing my memory. So I did not have asthma, so they wanted me to go and get tested for allergies. And so I did the whole thing, and I remember the doctor was over here kind of touching me and making all these weird faces, and I was like, is everything okay? And he's like, your thyroid is so swollen. It is very inflamed, and I want you to go and get a blood work test right away. It's concerning. Went back into the doctors, which tested that I had hypothyroidism, very interesting. I had never experienced any type of autoimmune disease ever in my entire life. I was going to be prescribed medication for the rest of my life. The doctor was like, anything with thyroid pretty much means that the body is attacking itself. So your body is attacking itself right now. So being the person that I am, I rejected his offer for me to take medication for the rest of my life because I could not understand what were the dots, what were the connections that led me to this. Back home, I did a lot of research. I read a lot of books. I came across, and it was a medical medium. And so it was talking about Hashimoto's disease. And so what the book said is that the liver may be filled with toxins into the lymphatic system and the bloodstream. It spoke on inflammation, which I always felt so inflamed right here. I felt like my face was just inflamed. That's what I felt. Being a symptom of injury and or of invasion by a foreign presence. And then after reading that, I remember seeing something on Facebook where there was like a heavy link between heavy metals and neurotoxins and mold, which reminded me of something that I had briefly read online about, which had to do with implants. So this is when I came across the Facebook page, Breast Implant Illness and Healing by Nicole. And at the time there was only 40,000 members, but today we have actually doubled it to 80,000 members of just women. It's a forum of a bunch of women explaining all of their symptoms and things that they have experienced. And as I started doing more research and as I started connecting more of my symptoms and everything that I had been experiencing, these women and their stories were of my own. Now, if you think about it, as they're sitting inside a warm environment, right? Like your body, like what is their typical body temperature? I think it's like 98.1. As they're sitting in there, in that warm body, these chemicals are leaching into your body. So I've heard this metaphor before where it's like, you leave a plastic bottle inside a really hot car, like what happens? It starts to deteriorate. So some women have experienced, getting sick right away. Their body immediately rejects it, while other women, it takes them a longer time to do. So let's start with how we got here. So breast augmentation was first presented in the late 1890s when doctors would literally inject liquid paraffin directly into the breast. Now, this form of breast augmentation was not very successful as the participants' bodies would reject the unknown material. Some of the reactions included hardening of the tissue surrounding the injections, which was very painful, and lumps in the breast which accumulated, resulting in deformation. Now, in 1962, Thomas Cronin and Frank Giroux invented the very first silicone implant. They decided to get these into the market and got in contact with Dow Corning Corporations to develop the first model for silicone. In the same year, Timmy Jean Lindsay became the first woman to receive breast implants. Now, the device implanted in her consisted of a elastic shell filled with silicone, and once again, it proved to have many complications, including infection, inflammation, and capsular contracture. Now, capsular contracture occurs when the body is trying to wall off material that's foreign to it by encapsulating it from the rest of the body. It can be very painful and your breasts become constricted and hard. And I was actually suggested by all the surgeons I saw to get textured implants, as that would decrease my chances of getting this. But however, later down through my research, I found out that my body would just be working twice as hard to protect itself from this foreign object. In 1976, the Medical Device Amendment was introduced. Now, this was the first time ever that the FDA began to regulate new devices that were brought to the market. This amendment created 3 regulatory classes for medical devices. Each category was based on the necessary control required to assure that the device was safe and effective. However, at this point, breast implants had been on the market for 15 years and they were said to be grandfathered in. In 1977, the first lawsuit against breast implants came to surface by a woman from Cleveland who was certain her ruptured implants were the cause of her multiple operations and life suffering. She won a $170,000 settlement from Dow Corning, and the case was said to receive little publicity. In 1982, the FDA placed breast implants in the most rigorous class, Category 3. This was the result of multiple reports of adverse events in the medical literature. Being in this category meant that manufacturers would be forced to submit documents stating their safety moving forward in order to stay on the market. Slowly but surely, lawsuit after lawsuit began to occur, all for similar systemic autoimmune diseases or issues in some way with silicone. Finally, in the 1990s, implants began to be more highly regulated. Now, although much of the safety of breast implants was occurring behind closed doors, the public became highly interested when a popular television show, Face to Face with Connie Chung, revealed the dangers of silicone breast implants. All of these stories with women with autoimmune disorders traced back to their implants were shared to the world to see. This stirred up many people all over and created this massive media buzz. Now, the National Institute for Health became involved and released a report pointing to the lack of research dedicated to diseases affecting women and the use of medical devices designed for women that were allegedly produced without adequate testing. That's when in 1992, David Kessler, FDA commissioner, imposed a temporary prohibition on breast implants due to their unknown safety. Now, saline implants were not banned at this time, and with the surge of popularity in the procedure increasing now by 275,000 from 1992 to 1997, patients had to opt for saline implants instead. Now, saline implants are attached to the belief that they are safer in comparison to silicone implants for the reason that if the implant ruptures, only saline fluid will be released into the body. However, since the composition of what actually made saline implants was not released to the public until later years, patients were unaware that saline implants are made up of a silicone shell. So the same complications that silicone patients were experiencing were also now being experienced by saline patients. In 1994, manufacturers stated that there was no scientific evidence linking silicone breast implants to autoimmune diseases. Now in 1995, the Queen, Oprah Winfrey, invited Dow Corning to confront him and discuss the current controversy over breast implants. Now at this time, Dow Corning's corporation had resulted in more than 12,000 lawsuits against the company alone.
You don't believe the breast implants caused her to have all the myriad of medical problems that
No, I do not. And that is there is considerable.
Now, as I watched the episode now in 2019 with Oprah Winfrey in conversation with Dow Corning back in 1995, the year after I was born, I could not help but really feel left down. I mean, resonating with a lot of the comments in the video stating, 24 years since that episode and nothing has changed, except a whole new generation of women who are suffering and were lied to on the risk. In 2006, the FDA brought back silicone implants, all thanks to serious lobbying of two major silicone companies, Allergan and Mentor. The conditions for the comeback was to require each company to conduct studies for 10 years with focus group studies of patients, laboratory studies, and describe device failure with each implant being tracked. After 14 years of restricted access to silicone breast implants due to their safety and concerns, the ban had been lifted. After 2 years of patients harmed by breast implants trying to get in contact with the FDA approved to have a public hearing on March 25th and 26th of this year to discuss the long-term effects of breast implants. Now, the woman who attended the hearing in Washington stated that the FDA panel allegedly acknowledged breast implant illness as being real. Now, allegedly, one panelist even went as far as showing the chemical ingredients of implants and calling them a chemical soup. Now, allegedly, they acknowledge implants leach chemicals into the body, calling it gel bleed. Now, in 2019, France and Canada have now both banned breast implants linked to a form of cancer known as anaplastic large cell lymphoma, a rare cancer that attacks the immune system. As far as the FDA in the States, we are still awaiting their responses. Wanted to quickly explain to you guys and just add my purpose for why I'm doing all of this. Number one, of course, I want to bring awareness and I want to share my story. And number two, I'm not here to remove a choice. I want to make that really clear. As someone with a deformity, I can sympathize greatly with those who have been, breast cancer survivors and feel that at times it's the best choice. Breast implants it's a very personal choice. And the issue is we expect these implants to be safe. So as with the thousands of women who are now rigorously taking their time to speak at FDA hearings and create blog posts to spread awareness and understand the physical and mental harm that these devices have had on us, I too stand and believe that FDA should uphold to the following, and this is what a group of women and myself are trying to accomplish. I'm going to leave this up on the screen. I'm also going to leave a link if you guys wish to further investigate and see it for yourself, but I just wanted to add, why, my intention, my purpose behind all of this. My biggest thing is, where is the informed consent? Because when I went in to get these breast implants, the biggest things and the only things they really told me that were adverse effects, capsular contracture and infection, but nothing about autoimmune diseases, nothing like that. Matter of fact, this is the little pamphlet that I got on my implants, and you would think, oh my goodness, all of this is what they gave me and I didn't read on it, it wasn't my fault. But all of this is just translated into multiple different languages. Really, all there is in here is 4, 5, 6 pages. This is pretty much what it says. Risk specific to breast implant surgery. Capsular contracture, which we already talked about. Breast sensations. They tell you might come in here being able to feel the nipples and you might get out of here not feeling stuff. So that was another. Wound healing, dissatisfaction with cosmetic results. This is all it says. Concerns including immunological and neurological disorders, carcinogenic and connective tissue disorders. But then it talks about how experts did these panels and how this was proven wrong. These 4 panels have uniformly concluded that there was no discernible evidence of causal association or positive risk ratio between exposure to silicone breast implants and recognized or new autoimmune connective tissue diseases. So it's saying that everything's fine. Subsequent studies have not demonstrated a relationship between any neurological diseases and breast implants. The SDOA report published in 2000 concluded, studies do not point to an association between silicone implants and serious health risks such as cancer and connective tissue disorders. Not online, not in person, not to my face, ever told me about the autoimmune portion of all of this, these terrible adverse effects that I would be living with and going to every doctor and being told, but you're okay, it's all in your head. Nothing's wrong with you. So even if the implant is filled with saline, the outer shell is still made out of silicone. And those with saline filling often have mold inside of their implants when removed. I also just want to note that the implants do not have to rupture and they do not have to leak for you to be feeling all of these symptoms. I explanted February 19th, 2019, and I explanted these two intact implants, completely intact, and yet I was still feeling all of these adverse effects. Thyroid problem. I was in a constant battle with being able to talk. My hair was falling off. My memory was lost. I was slurring when I was talking. I couldn't talk anymore. I couldn't communicate. My joints were in pain. I felt like an old person. I felt like I was dying, and I explanted these, and I cannot tell you how amazing I felt when I did. Can you imagine getting up from surgery and feeling better than you did when you went in? Now that is crazy. I got out of a 3-hour surgery. You know, I had my whole chest wall cleaned. I had the capsules removed. My muscle was hanging loose, it was unattached, and I still woke up feeling so much better. The brain fog was gone. The joint pain was gone the next 2 days. My hair has gotten a lot better. My memory was sharper. I felt like I could understand. It's crazy. It almost felt like I had this huge filter, like vignette filter around me that I couldn't focus and anything would alert me. My anxiety is so much better, so much more controlled. And I feel like myself again. I don't have the back pain that I used to have. I went to my masseuse, my massage lady, and I was telling her, you know, how's my back doing? She's like, girl, where are your knots? There was also this very interesting particular health study that was done by all of these people who had had breast implants and who had had them removed. And this pretty much asked the woman, you know, first and foremost, do you have saline? Do you have silicone? What are your worst symptoms? Rate them from 1 to 3. And then they would reflect on how they felt a year after explanting, and the results are just miraculous. And I can attest to this myself because I explanted not too long ago, 2 months ago it's been, and I literally feel like I got my life back. I feel so much better. I feel so much more energized, you guys. I can actually go to a class, like a Zumba class, a kickboxing class, and I could do it and I could finish it. So after 2 months of that, I have seen myself and just like the recovery that I've had just in that region, which is neurologically, I'm able to process things quicker. I'm sharper. I'm more clear-minded. I am not the only one that has experienced this. I mean, it's thousands of women who have explanted. The intention here is to bring awareness, to really let women understand what is going into your bodies. What I also want to mention is people are saying that, okay, well, these symptoms, they're very vague. This is making headlines now. And you know, the media is really falsifying a lot of the intentions that women like myself who have had this in their body are just wanting to bring awareness to and just speak on their truth. When it comes to your own health, be your biggest advocate for it. No one is in your body. No one knows what you are experiencing. Only you know. Don't disvalidate what you're feeling just because doctors or people are saying you're crazy. It's all in your head. In the same way that smoking used to be considered okay, but now it's not. This is making a huge movement. And you know, I am so grateful for all of the incredible women who have shared their stories because you guys have been my biggest motivation for sharing my story. And because of you guys, I am here today. And because of you guys, I was able to get my life back. And I'm forever, eternally grateful. Because if not, I would have still been living under this, you know, dark place where I was like, what's going on with my body? I'm deteriorating, and no one no one knows why. And while this was not yet recognized by the medical community, we are making noise. This is happening right now. I mean, like I said, in March, the FDA held a hearing with women that were trying to get in contact with them for over 2 years. And Canada and France have already taken some action. And now we're really just waiting for the US and to change a little bit of the world. I think, you know, if there's anything that's brought more purpose into my life, it's been this issue, because I've firsthand experienced it. And, you know, to quote Carissa Pukas, who said, you know, who would you rather believe? The manufacturers who are making these products, or the women who have lived with this and who are now sharing their stories? I am happy to be someone that is advocating for this. I'm happy to have this bigger purpose than just myself now, because I know that one voice can impact thousands, millions, and the generations to come. And I'm so happy to be in this position where unfortunately and fortunately, you know, I lived through this. This was my story, and I will continue to advocate for it. I will continue to be standing with all of these women who have been misdiagnosed, who have really had their lives turned upside down, and then they've explanted and they felt so much better. This is something important. Women should know about this. We should have that informed consent on what these products that we are buying and trusting are really all about. So this is my testimony, and we are real, and we need to be heard. If you guys would like a more in-depth on, you know, my surgery, my explant, how I'm feeling after all of this, how my sex life is after all of this, how my husband took all of this, my family, what I'm doing to build up my self-esteem and feel better, all of those videos will be coming out. I'm super excited. If there's anything that I have felt more inclined and more like aligned with my purpose in life, has been this. And while it's been so hard to talk about it, I am so grateful for you guys for encouraging me, even though you guys had no idea what it was that I was dealing with. I just appreciate you being there for me. I love you guys, and thank you so much for listening to my story. I also just want to encourage you guys to share your story, because you never truly know the impact that it can have on someone's life. And I know it takes courage, and I know it takes, you know, you being uncomfortable and getting out there, but in the end, it's always worth it. And I'm so proud of myself for doing this and getting it off my chest. Literally, I'm rocking the new little boobies. They are not deformed in my eyes. They are beautiful. They are me. They're the person God made me to be. And I will never, ever devaluate or put myself down again, because this is the body that God has given me to live, and I am so proud of that. So I love you guys, and have an amazing day, and I can't wait to continue sharing this whole journey on Instagram, on Twitter, and of course here on YouTube.